Tonight on Joy News Prime, suspended Chief Executive of Public Procurement Authority invited to appear before the Special Prosecutor, which is investigating corruption and corruption-related offences cited in the Contracts for Sale documentary. It's just one of a series of developments which have taken place since the broadcast of the documentary a little under 24 hours ago.
They are not so smart to look at the other implications. They can change and do this in lottery, they call it what? Permutation. They can do all this permutation. The one thing that gives them out is they have the same address.
The Office of the President has meanwhile rejected suggestions the suspension of the PPA Chief Executive is only a ruse and that he will eventually be cleared, just like other colleague appointees under the Kufuor administration.
What he says, the president is declaring it, it's completely unfounded, there's nothing to back that. He only acts on what these institutions of state tell him to do.
Inspector General of Police vows the administration will deal harshly with persons who attack his men.
It's on to resolve, to fish out all these miscreants and cowards who decide to attack police officers.
In business,
Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industries to establish credit union to help overcome SMEs' difficulty in accessing finance.
Credit union, once the person becomes a member and is able to contribute regularly, the person qualifies for a specific amount.
A stroke patient currently struggling to survive following collapse of Men's Growth appeals to both the company's chief executive and the president to intervene. I'm Israel. Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio at Procurement here in Accra with digital address GA0992539. Stay tuned in. In our first story, the suspended chief executive of the Public Procurement Authority is to report next week Thursday to the special prosecutor of allegations of corruption and conflict of interest made in the Contracts for Sale documentary by investigative journalist Manasseh Azuriah-Winnie. The documentary, which was first aired on this bulletin Wednesday night, shows how government contracts secured by a company owned by the PPA chief executive are handed out to interested parties willing to surrender a percentage of the contract sum. The invitation by the special prosecutor is the latest in a number of actions triggered after the broadcast of the documentary. Before we bring you the developments which have taken place since Wednesday night's broadcast and the letter from the OSP inviting Mr. J, let's bring you an excerpt of the Contracts for Sale documentary for the benefit of those who missed it.
He said that a bird that dances in the middle of the road must have its drummer or drummers in the nearby bush. And a new company with so many contracts with ministries and government institutions must indeed have links, as its general manager said. A search at the Registrar General's department shows that Talent Discovery Limited has two shareholders, Ejenim Eje, a majority shareholder of 60% of the shares, and Francis Ahin, who owns the remaining 40% shares. The two are also the directors of the company, which was registered in June 2017. Speaking generally on how to expose people who try to vary their names in order to hide their ownership of companies, the CEO of the PPA, Ejenim Eje, said a number of ways could be used to reveal the true owners.
Well, some people have a way, and I have dealt with some in the past.
Yeah. They
decide to even use, if they are using their names, they decide to use, pair them in a way. So for instance, if you have three names, they can use Ajenim Boating to register one company, use the Boating Eje to register another company, and then Ajenim Eje to register another company.
Yeah. Do you know what some, you see, when people are trying to perpetrate any kind of fraud, I would say that at the time that they have the intention to do that, they are not so smart to look at the other implications. They can change and do this in lottery, they call it what? Permutation. They can do all this permutation, but one thing that gives them out is they have the same address. Or you can locate one particular telephone number running through, you know, and it becomes so clear that yes, they tried to, you know, as it were, navigate and manipulate the system, but there is something that will always you know, give them out by that kind of trailing, you know, and we have seen it several times. Wow. Sometimes it's not the name, it's telephone number. Sometimes it's not telephone number, it's address, location.
Of the two directors and shareholders of Talent Discovery Limited, one of them pointed to the PPA CEO. The spelling of his Ejenim and Ej are the same as those on the registration documents, even though the registration of the company does not have his middle name or its initial.
Yeah, the right spelling and the right name is Ajenim Boatin Ej, and the Ej name is ADJENIM. Okay. It's not the AGY. Okay. Because it takes the same source from the surname, which is also ADJEI.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So Ajenim Boatin Ej.
His official name, as found in documents he signs, is not Ejenim Ej. He is Ejenim Boatin Ej, but he signs AB Ej in official documents, including approval letters at the PPA.
Normally, I try to limit the full name as much as possible because of how people call you. When people call the Ejenim Boatin, they leave the Ej. Oh, okay. All right, so then I feel that my surname has been shortchanged. So I rather prefer the AB Ej, in which case the Ej becomes prominent.
But there are more clues. Two of the companies of the TDL Group, Frosty Eyes Natural Mineral Water and ABM Logistics Ghana Limited, have shareholders and directors, namely Mercy Ej and Ejenim Ej. The tax identification number of the Ejenim Ej in the registration of Talent Discovery Limited is the same tax identification number used by the Ejenim Ej in the companies he jointly owns with Mercy Ej. My investigation also revealed that the wife of the PPA CEO is called Mercy Ej, so it is highly probable that the Ejenim Ej of the TDL Group is the same Ejenim Boatin Ej of the Public Procurement Authority.
Beyond your professional life, you're also a family man, I guess?
Sure. I'm a happily married man with 3 lovely children.
Wow.
Yes.
I was reading somewhere that your wife is called Mercy Ej.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That is her.
Okay.
Yes, Mercy Ej.
Congratulations for all of this.
The address of Frosty Eyes, a member of the TDL Group, is a street in Airport Hills in Accra, and that is where the PPA boss lives.
Well, subsequent to the airing of the documentary, President Akufo-Addo announced the suspension of the PPA chief executive, and bring that letter that was put out by the president. It says the president of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has suspended from office with immediate effect the chief executive officer of the Public Procurement Authority, Mr. A.B. Ej. This follows the broadcast of allegations made against him in an investigative documentary conducted by Manasseh Azuri-Awuni titled Contracts for Sale. President Akufo-Addo has subsequently referred the allegations involving conflict of interest to the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, RAJ, and those relating to potential acts of corruption to the Office of Special Prosecutor for their prompt action. The President has also notified the chairperson of the board of the PPA to ensure that Mr. A.B. Ej hands over his office expeditiously to Mr. Frank Mante, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the PPA. And this letter is signed by the Director of Communications at the presidency. Now, the president didn't leave it at that and followed up with a letter to both SRAJ and the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Let's look at those letters now. So, referral of allegations of conflict of interest against the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority. And this letter is signed by Nana Santi Bedie Etu, who's secretary to the president. And then we go to the other letter, which is to the Office of Special Prosecutor, and it continues. It states, the Let me bring you a bit of that. I'm directed by the President of the Republic to refer to the Office of the Special Prosecutor allegations of corruption made against Mr. Ejenim Boateng Ejei, Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority, in a documentary titled Contracts for Sale, a Manasseh Azuri winning investigation aired on Joy News TV on August 21, 2019. Mr. Ejenim Boateng Ejei has meanwhile been suspended from office pending investigation. Now, these two letters, it is believed the invitation from the Special Prosecutor was informed by the correspondence from the President. The OSP does not also limit the invitation to only the PPA Chief Executive. Let's go to the letter from the Office of the Special Prosecutor inviting the PPA Chief Executive. It reads, as the heading, invitation to the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority and the directors and shareholders of Talent Discovery Limited and B Mobile Enterprise Limited to assist in investigations into procurement malpractice and to produce information and documents pursuant to Section 29 and 73 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, and Regulation 10 of LI 2374. So it goes on to say this office has been conducting preliminary investigations into suspected commission of corruption and corruption-related offenses by the above-named limited liability companies and their directors and shareholders. The matters of preliminary investigation has reached such a stage that instructions for a full investigation into possible procurement malpractices in the nature of corruption and corruption-related offenses have been issued. You are accordingly being invited both as the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority and a director and shareholder of the said companies to assist in the investigations in pursuance of Section 29 and 73 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act. And it continues, you are hereby requested to come along with all information and documents, including relevant minutes of the board relating to this investigation. You are to report to the acting head of investigations of this office on Thursday, August 29, 2019 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon with the relevant information and documents here in before requested for. And kindly accept the compliments of the Special Prosecutor and the highest consideration. And this is signed by Martin ABK Amedu, who's the Special Prosecutor. All right, so that's what we have as the developments that have taken place. And we have been speaking with the Office of the President, which has described as unfounded suggestions that nothing much would become of the case of the suspended Public Procurement Authority Chief Executive. Now, members of the public have generally been skeptical that the PPA Chief Executive will be punished should the malpractices be confirmed. Out there on social media, there are those who have tagged the President a clearing agent, because they say Mr. J will eventually be left off the hook or cleared, just like other colleague appointees who have been cited in corruption scandals that have come up under this administration. Director of Communications at the Presidency, Eugene Ayin, however, disagrees. He tells Joy News' Latif Idris the President's action is to serve as a deterrent to other appointees.
Of this particular documentary, at the end of the day, we all glean two issues from it. Firstly, issues with respect to conflict of interest, and secondly, potential acts of corruption. So these two issues, separately, the President definitely had to refer those matters to, he couldn't have referred those matters to one particular body. If it had to do with, for example, issues bordering on criminality, for example, definitely we would know the CID would be the best institution to handle it. But with respect to issues bordering on conflict of interest and then issues bordering on corruption, once we now have a body mandated to deal with issues specific to corruption, that was the right body for the President to forward those specific allegations to, and that's what he's done. I mean, in my press statement, I stated that the President is demanding prompt action. In the letter to the Special Prosecutor and to the Commission on Human Rights and Administration, he made those same demands, that he wants a prompt resolution. Prompt. I wouldn't be able to put timelines on prompt, but he's made it clear, abundantly clear, he wants a swift resolution of this matter as quickly as possible, because we don't want this issue to drag on. So prompt, I believe the two bodies understand what the President means.
Political opponents and a section of the Ghanaian public have over the period described the president as a clearing agent. But that allegation has been disputed by the Director of Communication, Eugene Ahin, who says the president has always acted based on directive and reports of state institutions.
That tag is completely unfounded and completely unfortunate, completely. Because, as I said at the beginning of this interview, every single allegation that has been made against an appointee of the president, every single one of them, he's made sure those allegations have been investigated. I can give you several examples. We can take firstly the very first one that came up when the then Minister for Energy, Boakye Jakon, was the subject of bribery allegations by some members of the Appointments Committee. I mean, first and foremost, that particular allegation of bribery was investigated by a bipartisan body of parliament. They came out with a recommendation, first and foremost, that nothing whatsoever had been done. So the president only acted by swearing him in after parliament had done the work. Secondly, we can come to the so-called cash for seats scandal. Again, it was a bipartisan committee of parliament that worked to investigate the issues surrounding the cash for seats scandal. And the recommendations were brought to the president. The recommendations were made public for everybody to see. And in there, it made it clear that the Minister for Trade and Industry and his deputy, neither of them had done any wrong. So the president went ahead, based on the report of Parliament, to go ahead to reinstate those persons. Again, when we look at the matter that had to do with the two deputy chiefs of staff and then the then Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports, who is now the Deputy Minister for Information, Pius Hajide, again, those allegations were made. The president quickly forwarded those allegations to the Criminal Investigations Department. They were the ones who did the investigation and came back and told the president there's no substance to any of these allegations that have been made. And this one here is no exception. He has, at the end of the day, he didn't say he's going to conduct the investigation himself. None of the other cases that have come up, he didn't say he's going to conduct the investigations himself. He's passed them on to the relevant bodies. In this case, he's passed them on to SHRAJ. He's passed them on to the Office of Special Prosecutor. So if at the end of the day, for example, if SHRAJ, for example, says, Mr. President, this man can no longer hold office because blah, 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 the president will act on it. If SHRAJ also comes up and says, Mr. President, he has committed no wrong, the president will only act on it. So every single incident of alleged acts of corruption or criminality against any of his appointees, he hasn't personally gotten up to clear any of them. So everybody says the president is clearing it, it's completely unfounded, completely, there's nothing to back that. He only acts on what these institutions of state tell him to do.
So how strong of a deterrent do you expect this latest directive by the president to send to his appointees?
Well, I mean, just as he's been doing from day one. I mean, he's not somebody who's going to condone any acts of illegality or any acts of corruption or any acts that would threaten to undermine the public purse or to undermine the state. I mean, he's made it clear time and time again that if you are an appointee and you are caught up in any such act, definitely he'll make sure the rules also apply to you. If it means investigations being carried out on you, it'll be done. If those investigations come up and prosecutions, for example, are recommended, definitely you face the law. Bottom line, regardless of whoever you are in his administration, once you do anything that goes contrary to the rules or the laws of our land, definitely you'll be dealt with.
Now, the issue of the board, the deputy has been asked to take over. Issue is he was there when this whole thing happened. Do we have confidence in the board first to start with, and also the deputy who is now taking over? Is the president confident that these individuals will be able to carry out their duties as expected? Yeah,
first and foremost, I mean, the decision by the president to even make the deputy act should tell you first and foremost that the president is confident in the capacity or ability of the deputy CEO, who is now acting CEO, to run the affairs of the Public Procurement Authority. With respect to issues of the board and what they may have done, I mean, that's...
They give the pass to contracts.
Exactly. So this is just the first step or the first action that the president has taken with regards to these things. I mean, the main subject of the investigation was the CEO. So that has been dealt with. So if there are any rollover effects or rollover actions that have to be taken by the president with respect to any other person, that I can assure you definitely the Ghanaian people would know about it. But one thing I know for example, I don't think this is the end of the whole issue. Whatever be the case, once adequate studies are conducted or adequate investigations are conducted internally to find out who or what or who did what or who was negligent on the board or whatever it is, all those actions will be taken. But as I said, this is just the first line of action. Subsequently, whatever has to be done definitely will be done.
Is the president disappointed in the now suspended CEO?
I wouldn't want to tread along those lines. I just want to say that whatever be the case, the president has moved to make sure that this the gentleman in question, Mr. ABAJ, has stepped aside from office. Investigations are being taken to unravel whatever it is he did, and if the law has to take its course, the law will take its course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Latif.
So that was the Director of Communications at the Presidency. And in there, during the interview, you heard Latif Idris make mention of the fact that the board, there are people who are calling for the board to also be asked to step aside. That call has been repeated in a statement that has been put out by a number of CSOs in the country. And I'll share that statement, their statement, with you in a moment, because they, among other things, are calling for they're demanding substantive action. So the CSOs coalition working against corruption welcomes government's prompt action to suspend Mr. ABAJ, the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority. It goes on to talk about that and moves on to explain, highlight some of the sections of the Public Procurement Authority. Now, it goes on to say, to demonstrate real commitment by President Akufo-Addo and his government to the fight against corruption, CSOs working against corruption are calling for his high office to further suspend the entire board of the PPA pending investigations from the OSP and SHRAJ. The board cannot be left blameless in this whole contracting saga, as revelations made in the said documentary raises serious concerns about the board's understanding of the conflict of interest injunction imposed by Article 284 of the 1992 Constitution and how to manage it. Additionally, the board's oversight or possible complicity in the possible abuse of the restricted tendering rules requires them to step aside for a thorough investigation to be completed. All right, so that was the statement coming from the CSOs. We're staying with this story. Board members of the Institute of Procurement and Supply just finished an emergency meeting on developments in the last 24 hours. And here, it is important to note or point out that the suspended PPA Chief Executive is a council member. Let's cross over to Latif Idris, who is standing by with some executives of the Institute after the meeting. Hello, Latif.
Hello, Easy.
All right, so
so we are here at KNET where the yeah, Israel, I can hear you.
So you tell us what transpired at this meeting.
Okay, Israel. So the executives had a meeting today following the investigative piece by Manasseh Azure Arini, and I'm joined by three executives of Procurement and Supply. On my immediate right, I have Mr. Colin Sajiman Sapon. He is the president. My immediate left is Mr. Kwame Mensah. He is the part of the Statutory Bill and Legal Committee. And last but not least, on my far left is Dr. Dela Helu. He is the chair of the Ethics and Professional Committee of the Procurement and Supply. Let me start with you. What exactly would you say is the communique after convening this very important and urgent meeting?
Okay, I would say that all that we needed to do, the person in question is a senior member of the Institute. So during the meeting, there was the need for us to come out what is going to be done. So at the meeting, it's been agreed that we have to activate our disciplinary process, which is going to be done, and also call on all the investigative bodies, the SRAJ, the OSP, and all the investigative bodies to go further to investigate. And one other thing that is very classic is most of the infractions that do come out in the public is in relation to restricted tendering and single source procurement, where we think that they need to go further, not only this, so that some of these infractions and this negative news about procurement practice in the country can be curtailed or kept or removed. So we mentioned that. And also, there's something that is going on, which we think that we do not have license as practitioners like other professionals. So we think that the absence of that license for people to practice gives room for anybody practicing procurement to do it anyhow, because at the end of the day, they are not answerable to anybody. So we called on the president to also hear us and help us come up with an act, a practicing act, to regulate the members that are practicing procurement and also governing body, so that it will be a professional body where people will now hold license to practice. If you breach anything, the license can be taken away from you. And I think that when we are able to do that, people will be disciplined enough in their day-to-day management of procurement authority.
Thank you. I don't know which of you would take this, but he made a point about starting your own investigations. How are you going to run that once we know that the OSP and SRAJ, the president has referred this matter to these two institutions? How are you going to run your own investigations whilst these two are ongoing?
Our constitution is very clear about that. They also have their mandate, the various institutions. But our constitution is very clear. We invite him personally, that is Mr. Barton, and then we'll take it from him. He has a right to come with a legal representation and then appear before the committee. And then we'll take him through, and then we'll come out with the conclusion.
Is he compelled to appear before the committee?
Yes, by the membership, by the constitution. We'll give him 14 days, and he's compelled to come, or a lawyer, for that matter, can represent him, or he can do a write-up, whatever we want to do. The meeting will be in camera. The constitution states so. So he's compelled to come. If not, sanctions follow.
How soon should we expect this appearance?
The appearance will give him the mandate, the mandatory 14 days to appear.
I would come to you briefly. Did you see this coming as an institute?
Should I say not in this dramatic fashion, especially for one we describe as a leading light in our profession, to be caught in such an unfortunate incident. But it is something we know that in the practice of procurement, such abuses do happen. But to have the foremost gatekeeper in procurement being found guilty, being found to engage in things that do not readily, sit well as far as the procedures and the guidelines are concerned, it is quite a problem for us. But like I said, it is something that we know happens in public procurement. And it is the reason the president alluded to the fact that we are asking the president to extend investigations into all matters of restricted tendering and single sourcing, where we think most of the abuses happen.
So you spoke about that earlier. You want what has made this system so porous to allow for some of these infractions, and how are we going to cure that?
with the single source and the restricted tendering methods, they are supposed to be the exceptions in terms of the processes of doing acquisitions or engaging in buying. But what we are witnessing is rather they are becoming the default processes that are being used. And that is where the inherent issues of abuses happen. So if you take the single source method, for instance, the Act specifies the conditions under which you could activate it. The Procurement Authority has gone further to even publish guidelines on how entities could submit their applications in order to obtain approval from the authority. In the case of the restricted tendering, we have a situation where the two underpinning principles of economy and efficiency that will enable an entity obtain approval from the authority are the only things that you need to demonstrate when you are submitting an application. All other factors are the discretion of the approving authority, and these are methods that are subject to the approval of the procurement authority. So we are of the considered opinion that in such issues, Section 2 of the Act enjoins us to carry out procurement in an open, transparent, fair manner. And at the end of the day, the bottom line we intend to achieve is value for money. So what you do in order to underscore these principles that I have mentioned in Section 2 is for you to publish the guidelines. The guidelines is what...
So you're calling for publication?
Of the guidelines.
Yes,
and that is what is going to deepen the transparency we're talking about. It's going to deepen the fairness we are talking about. It's going to deepen the non-discrimination that we are talking about. So that where you have a company, for instance, Manasseh, just, whether as a subcontractor, just approached this person in the video, whether or not they have capacity, wasn't determined, even though they were not the frontline organization to have gone for the approval. But what we are asking, and it's quite intriguing, a company formed in 2017 of June. Yeah. A company formed in 2017.
You have to wrap up for us.
Thank you very much. Let me just wrap up. And then...
All right, so there you have Latif Idris speaking with some executives of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply after an emergency meeting they held just today. It ended less than an hour ago. You're watching Joy News. Brian, I'm sure the conversations will continue on social media and in your homes. But still ahead in the bulletin, stroke patient currently struggling to survive following collapse of Menzol appeals to both the company's chief executive and the president to intervene. And then in business, Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industries to establish credit union to help overcome SMEs' difficulty in accessing finance.
Once the person becomes a member and is able to contribute regularly, the person qualifies for a specific amount.
Emmanuel Abajuafi will be here with the business news in a bit. Stay tuned in. Now, whilst government requests Menzgo to formalize its appeal for support to retrieve its millions of dollars it says is locked up in Dubai, it appears the woes of some of the company's investors continue to deepen. When businesswoman Juliet Oti suffered a stroke, she was convinced her money could still work for her if she invested in the gold dealership. The importer invested all her funds, totaling 100,000 Ghana cedis. Little did she know the company was on the verge of collapse. My colleague Fifi Kumsing was in the home of Juliet and our reports.
Inside her home in the Accra suburb of Amasaman, 50-year-old Juliet Oti staggers towards a plastic chair. She suffered a bad stroke just when she was preparing for a business trip to China. With this mobility challenge, Juliet says she was sure her business was on the cusp of collapse.
Last year, no muna me yare. Me yare next kakra kura na msanga na aye basa.
But when a good friend advised her to invest in men's gold, Juliet believed she could still earn some money on her funds.
Na me te men's gold. In sense say, men's gold. Na me te me ko bisa no. Na me ko ye bi.
She invested 100,000 Ghana cedis. But soon after this, the company's troubles started. She never received a dividend, and her principal was locked up.
Scanning baako kura mafi. Say your name say BBC beden ABC.
Juliet's stroke is worsening. She's in pain, she says, but money for simple checks and hospital visits is hard to come by.
Fede once in the mini bibra, me yam ho hwe nyi. Me yam chese me abra me so na fia nyina kura me. Mba busu nyina akula yi me yana me hwe omu nyina. So what I say? Ina hwan na me kwa akwaji bi. Enye izo bra.
That's not all. Juliet says the situation has affected her relationship with her husband because she failed to inform him about the decision to invest in men's gold.
And I'm a says some way won't me kura na men kasa. Pesan kula ya. Enye izo. To say I do takra do ni.
Juliet describes this as a family tragedy. Her daughter has just completed senior high school, but under the current situation, her future is uncertain.
Like there's no money home. There's no money home for me to further my education. So I'm in the house right now, and I'm not even able to work because of my mom, because I can't leave the house and go out searching for work because there's no one to take care of her.
My brankasa, my bre papa. Me ho fa me papa. Nyankopon na ehun mobo amda so tia. Me su ti sa aboa me be ni. Me su omususu. Fia. Because me ni ubia ka me ni me Nyankopon pe. Yeah, easy.
Throughout our interview with Juliet, she continued to make this plea.
The masam here wa pa me pesa nam one. So Ghana e pa na cho bibiri. On fancy ni nuaba me na me yare. Me de me pe hospitals. Me ni kura me hunu hwe me bre me fa asa me so me fie. E we me twe me pa me reda ma. Onsa mobile fe na ma sore me nawo. Me presa me bre bra.
That's her story.
Now, over the last few weeks, we have heard from senior media practitioners and experts within the media industry lamenting what they call the recession of media freedoms under the Kufuor administration. Under the Defend Media campaign, you've heard, among others, veteran journalist Kwesi Pratt Jr. expressing his repulsion at the suggestions that media freedom should be restricted, and renowned press freedom champion Charles Rekuprobe, who scored President Kufuor's administration as having the worst press freedom record. But Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah insists, although there have been increased attacks on journalists, the impression must not be created that media freedom is under attack. He spoke with Joy News editor Haraba Kumsi.
Must also be careful how we then begin to create this impression that media freedoms are under attack in Ghana. An attack on a journalist, as terrible as it is, as condemnable as it is, as we ask the agencies to deal with it, should not now be spun into, for example, some of these narratives that you begin to see all over the place.
Which narratives will that be?
I'm coming. Some of these narratives that you begin to see all over the place, that media freedoms in general are under attack here in Ghana. And I think that we should be able to deal with the issues on a specific basis and bring resolution to them. Press freedom, technically defined, cannot be said to be under attack in Ghana. President Akufo-Addo is the one on whose watch the Right to Information Bill, which is now an act, which is what I think in recent times advances the cause of media practice. This bill that had been on the table for nearly 20 years, it is on his watch that has been passed and assented to. It is on his watch that government for the first time is putting in place what we call the Media Capacity Enhancement Program. We had the privilege of inviting you my colleague Israel Lai, etc., to be on the platform and to help us shape it so that we can support media work in this country. It is on his watch that the coordinated mechanism for the safety of journalists is being rolled out with the support of the GJA, GIBA, and everybody. So if there's anybody who is working to assist push forward the frontiers of media practice in Ghana, I think we can give President Akufo-Addo credit for it. It is true, however, that we have observed or we have seen a reportage of attacks on journalists in recent years. That is a fact. And that fact we put out there without necessarily saying that it means that press freedom is under attack or that President Akufo-Addo is attacking the media. I think we should state that fact and we can interrogate the whys and how to cure.
Acting Inspector General of Police James Opongwenu has warned the police will deal harshly with miscreants who continue to attack officers in the line of duty. Speaking at the Media Church Service for Personnel at the police headquarters in Accra, the acting IGP says his men must not be intimidated but rather stay focused on ensuring that lives and properties are protected. F1 Evans Chinri has more.
The acting Inspector General of Police shared some words of encouragement with his men after the death of 3 police officers in the last 21 days. Instead of feeling despondent, he's calling on his men to let these dastardly acts spur them on to hunt down the miscreants. He also called on the general public to assist the police with any information on criminal activities.
Within the past few days, we have witnessed a few unpleasant incidents. But as law enforcement officers, these incidents should not dampen our morale. Rather, they should spur us on to resolve, to fish out all these miscreants and cowards who decide to attack police officers.
He's advising his men to meet regularly to ensure that they keep up with information that will help in curbing crime in the country.
Officers of formations and units should have regular monthly welfare meetings with their personnel so that should anything develop, they'll be able to attend to those problems right from the start. So regular medical checkups, a medical outreach, as well as a regular, welfare meetings for officers. The communities, members of the public should help us with information on crime and criminals, because most of the things are things that happen in the presence of people, but they are not prepared to come forward. My appeal is that if you see anything happening relating to crime or criminals, do not hesitate. Let us know, and I can assure you that we'll take action on it. I can also assure you that we'll protect your identity.
The mid-year church service is organized for police officers to draw closer to God and seek His protection in their line of duty.
Residents of Sampa in the Bruno region of Ghana and Soko in the Guntungu region of Côte d'Ivoire say rampant armed robbery and activities of heavily armed nomadic herdsmen are tormenting them in the area. They say the robbers target cashew seasons and attack farmers who travel in and out of Ghana and Ivory Coast to steal their belongings. And that's a report from the Bruno region for our series dubbed Porous Borders.
Like most border towns, residents are by no means limited to trade. Most of these communities are also linked by economic, social, cultural, and religious ties. Here at the Ghana-Côte d'Ivoire border, Residents of Sampa and Soko express worry at the spate of robbery cases recorded in recent years, especially during cashew seasons. Residents who walk to and from their farms either by foot or bike are being attacked by armed robbers. Yes, they exist, especially during cashew seasons. Even today, someone reported of his lost motorbike and we directed him to report the case to the police. There are thieves here, but we don't know where they are from. There is a specific place where they usually stand to rob, but as to whether they are Ghanaians, Fulani herdsmen, or we do not know. The border linking Ghana and Ivory Coast here in Sampa is just a tiny piece of land. After all, history says these borders are artificial creations by the colonial masters. The people who live here say they consider themselves as one people irrespective of their different nationalities. We are same people with those in Sampa. We speak same language too. Some of us here do go to marry from Sampa and the vice versa. Some of us marry from Sampa and they also do same. So one may cross over to his father's farm to work. Others also work in Sampa. Some also work here for their daily earnings. Moro Abu speaks of how they work together with security officials to prevent the influx of illegal items and thefts at unapproved routes, even though it remains a daunting challenge. There exist unapproved routes, but the custom officers are always there. So it's better you use the main route, because when you are arrested in the bush, you go through West treatment. So it's better you avoid those routes. I have come to the Sampa border from Soko. Here, border business is ongoing as usual. Like the other border posts we have checked, immigration and customs officials work under extreme pressure, not to mention lack of logistics. Here in Sampa, they even lack office space. One of them spoke to me on the condition of anonymity.
Yeah, logistics, that one, we need logistics. We need accommodation for officers. And even we can see that here we are patching with custom office. That is their main decision. You see, this is the general office. We have commander's office. They are all not in good shape. And we also have a training officers here who went for border patrols. They are well trained, but they have no arms. Even if you can get a shocker or a pepper spray, all these items to enhance our work here.
He also highlights the activities of armed nomadic herdsmen.
Also, some of them too, they are here and they seek medical help. As they are going here, are they going empty-handed? Are they coming empty-handed? But a Fulani man, you know, by the nature, they are nomadics. And they are in the bush. They try to protect their animals, so they have weapons. So normally when they come here, we check them. We use a scanner to scan to see whether they are carrying dangerous weapon.
Our checks along the various artificial routes created by smugglers revealed that immigration officials are being stationed to foil possible influx of smuggled goods and ammunition. My next destination is the Buko end. This structure is the supposed accommodation for the officers at post. But with no electricity, terrible telecommunications network, and the unavailability of mattresses, officers are being rotated on weekly basis instead of being stationed here permanently. These officials who work here are those accused of extortion by traders at the border. So I asked the officer who spoke to me on anonymity for a response.
No, not yet, because I'm just here barely a year now. So I have not come across that. Maybe if it exists, maybe other commander, but not this period. Because our new Director General warned us that you have found is the consequences. So, but not to my attention. Yeah, in every society, I have bad nuts, but not to the best of my knowledge.
From Soko, Sampa, Kabili, and Buko along the Ghana-Cote d'Ivoire border, I am Anas Sabit for Joy News.
A new app allows patients to save time and energy by providing a platform for them to buy drugs without stepping out of their homes. The technology known as FastRx is the brainchild of a senior high school graduate in Kumasi, Mustafa Zaidan, and his partner. It connects patients with pharmacies where they can have medication delivered to them. 500 subscribers are already hooked on to the yet-to-be-launched application. Mohammed Nuruddin reports.
Yes, it has two options. We have the create other options, and we have drug advice option. So with the create other option, it also comes with two options. You can create an over-the-counter drug order, or you create insurance.
FastRx is revolutionizing how people take and manage their medications by pre-sorting in a personalized packet with drug potency, date, time and dosage. It also signs up patients with chronic conditions and connects them to the right doctor for care and advice. App developer Mustafa Zaidi says the motivation is to help people tackle wrong prescription and dispensing issues.
We have pharmacists on board, certified pharmacists on board that are working for FastRx. If we receive any order, they review the order and get back to confirm the order from the patient. And we also have a pharmacist at the pharmacy shop who is going to make sure he's not giving us any expired drug.
It took Mustafa and his colleague about 3 years to develop the FastRx app to simplify the process of organizing and taking medication on time.
Okay, my name is William Mabrefa, the co-founder and the chief marketing officer of FastRx. Well, the drug management service is specifically designed for patients with chronic diseases under several medications. So when you order a drug, we order a drug with a prescription, we pre-sort the drug into a well-labeled packet to be delivered to you right at the comfort of your home. So you don't have to go through the hassle of taking all your pill bottles to workplace or school. You just pick a packet and send it to wherever you go. And it comes with the drugs that you want to take, the time that you want to take, and the days that you want to take. So it all comes into one packet with all the dosage that you want.
Amidst difficulty to get people to sign up, Zaidin and Nazif started house to house to promote their invention.
I'm Mohammed Nazif, the Chief Operating Officer for FastRx mobile app. I want to talk about the challenges we faced talking to people for them to understand how FastRx is and then how we operate. We began with Akutia line. So what we do is that we go survey the area where we are going to make a reach out. With the survey, we make sure we ask of 3 things. We ask whether how the people over there get access to their medications, and then we try to ask them about the cost of the drugs that they usually buy.
They have served 530 patients since April. Mustafa says FastRx is meaningfully improving lives of clients, and they are looking forward to extending it to other parts of the country by next year.
So we're currently serving 2 communities. We're currently serving Akwitia Lai, and we're also serving Abuabo. So you can either download our mobile app on Google Play Store, or you can give us a call, and our pharmacist would get back to you on whatever drug you want, you need. download it, you place an order. That's all. And there's also slots for cost too as well.
And that's it. I am Israel Live. Stay tuned in for PM Express, which comes up after this program. I do have a good time.